Good evening, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Before we begin, I would like to give a huge shout out to my active patron members. A big thank you to Nodentur, Fan DLN, Envious Nova, Indigoblin, Rachel C, Bedtime, Stella, Spam Juniper Turn, Cloaked Pelt 29, Aelin, Aaron Tash, Tess, Gwendolyn Adams Bone, Azura Akamor, Leonardo Preciosa. My goodness, my apologies. Emma, Knock on Wood, Nobody at All, Agatha, Ragecat 888, Amy Wires, The Octahat, Evelyn Puppy, Dzep, Rosebud, Nunberg, Antari Akiyama, Sarha Smith, Valkyr Tenno, Galahad, Salgor Agaris, Marisa Kersidasame, Benna for the Potato, Genetic Zero, ZT Mackin, Songbird, Kyra, Void Dweller, Teeth for 5, Morning Owlet, Elster Shiny Things, Jessica, Amy Olgers, Tiny Portal, Chloe, Vera the Space Witch, Ellipses, CM Fireflies, Some Guy, Ghost 48, Joanna, Indigo, Aelin, Kai, Danny Bobani, TGA, Breedable Vaporeon, Needon, Mick Shepherd, Captain Aardvark 986, Lily Adams, Hazel, Kulik 92, Prophecy Fulfilled, DFA Plays, Robot Waifu, and Bloodmoth. Thank you. Thank you so very much for all of your support. It truly, truly means the universe to me. If you too would like to become an active patron member, please click the link in the description down below to visit my Patreon page. And with that all out of the way, welcome back, my alliterative allies. It is so very good to see you again. Hi! Oh my gosh. Oh, it feels like ages since I was streaming last. Oh wait, no, I was streaming last night. Indeed, Ray. Hello, Kendrick. Hello, Wandile. Hello, Maya. And hello, Lost in Wonderland. Hi, it's so very good to see you all again. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the stream. Also, I hope that the stream quality isn't too terrible right now. I'm still worried that the internet's just gonna cut out at random. I do apologize if it does. Hello, C. Hello, and welcome. Anyways, I actually have a little bit of news to share with you that you might already know if you've been keeping up on the Steam page, and especially with some of the releases that Capcom has been releasing, as well as re-releasing. And that's right. As a matter of fact, they released the original versions of Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 on Steam. They are available right now, which means Nemesis is home. Nemi is back. My boy. Finally. I don't have to, like, emulate the game or pirate it or whatnot in order to play it, because it was released and the game's so cheap. Like right now, it's around $5. I consider that a steal. An absolute steal. Hello, Vermilion VA. It is so very good to see you again. Welcome, welcome. Oh, I don't know if it's simply your connection, Ray. My connection has been pretty dog crap as well. Sometimes it just randomly cuts out for no reason at all, which might make the stream cut out short if it does. Also, yeah, I might have been influenced a little bit by the amazing digital circus in that I just want to be a really, really good entertainer. And so I decided that I was going to be trying to do a little bit more, add a little bit more quirkiness into the stream. Please do give me feedback whether I could be doing better or worse. Bum, ba-da-ba-da-bum, ba-da-ba-ba-da-da, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-ba-da-da, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. Camilla says 2 nights in a row. Welcome back, Camilla. It is so very good to see you again. Yes, 2 nights in a row. Can we make it a third? Oh, I'm so excited to be streaming again. That's right, I'm not going to be holding to a necessarily fixed schedule, and in turn, it means I get to stream more often. Which means those of you who are able to catch the streams will be able to catch it at the odd hours where you normally wouldn't be able to. You'll just randomly see a foxo in the wild. But I will actively try to make Wednesdays and Thursdays consistent. Ray says circus reference. One of us, one of us. The latest episode was so heart-wrenching. Lost in Wonderland says, Tatsu mentioned. Target acquired. Maya says, I might give Tatsu a watch. Please do. You won't regret it. Camilla says, neighbors are being loud and that upsets the dog. I'm so terribly sorry, Camilla. Believe it or not, underneath my Yandere Jester video, or just like the Jester audio, I don't know if you would consider that Jester Yandere or not. I guess kind of-ish? Regardless, underneath that one, there was one comment that said that I sounded exactly like the moon from the Amazing Digital Circus, due to just like one random voice clip that she has, in which she says, they look happy. I also can apparently do a really, really good bubble impression. You should throw a fluffing beach party. Made with all the love I'm legally allowed to give. Bubble, you can see Camilla? I see, I see. Bra, ba da ba da ba, ba da ba ba da da. But yes, Nemesis is back. And I am looking forward to playing Resident Evil Nemesis, the original, and hopefully I'll be able to do that on stream. I'm so looking forward to this. This is going to be fantastic. Camilla says femboy cookies style love, or is that love illegal? I wouldn't know if it's illegal, but questionable? I mean, if I made the cookies, then they would just be regular old cookies, but then again, If a femboy made them, would they still be regular cookies? The terminology makes no sense. And me no likey. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Sorry, I lost track of my thoughts there for a second, completely zoning out entirely. Sometimes I just do that from time to time. Camilla says, I'm happy. I think my burnout is gone. Congratulations. Oh, it's wonderful when you're not suffering burnout for once. Let me tell you, being in the middle of burnout and a massive writer's block sucks, especially if you rely on your writing for a living. I think my writing has suffered an awful lot due to, the little use. I suppose I'll be writing again when I properly am all rested up and able to create at my own pace again. Oh, I'm just cooking up so many different things. So many different ideas. Maya says, I'm almost done with exams, so soon I can finally actually relax. Also, I recently played the Shadows of Rose DLC for Village of Shadows, and, woof. That one was amazing. I kind of want to see an entire game featuring Rose. Because Rose is just fantastic. Rosemary Winters. One of my favorite protagonists ever, besides, like, Ethan Winters, Leon Kennedy, Jill Valentine, Ada Wong, etc. Camilla says, honestly, I enjoyed the McBatty-style video you did. Yeah, I don't particularly like AI, and that is what all of the Winged Seraph videos are primarily made with. I think the voice might be AI as well. So, my feelings on it are mixed, but I like the idea of there being like some sort of analog creature that offers guidance to you. And so I thought, well, what better than something in the style of a really low poly video game? What if you just encountered it while you were out and about? A low poly fox that speaks in my voice and calls you Little Flame. I should do some more of those videos, honestly. Just making 3D environments again at long last after like so long. Stars, it's great. Because yeah, as a matter of fact, the background that you're looking at right now, I made that. I made it, I textured it, and yeah. I put a fox right where I am typically standing. Lost says, I mean, my name is Ember, so it's not far off, lol. Yeah, I wonder, should I make that like a part of the official lore of my VTuber character? Should I just make that like a part of the lore in general? That I am also just like this analog fox that wanders about and sometimes offers advice and sometimes plays tricks on you. Thank you so very much, Vermilion. It truly is magnificent to be back. Hey, Slimunor! Welcome! Welcome, welcome! It is so very good to see you again. Please pull up a chair. Get yourself something lovely to drink. Preferably something a little bit cooler if you're living in a really hot environment like I am, because, oh my gosh, cold drinks are life. Speaking of which, I'm gonna actually put in a request. Camilla says stars. I remember what I was going to ask. Is that in stars and time reference? No, actually. I've taken to using it after reading a bunch of fictions as a replacement for any religious figures. Mainly because I kind of want to divorce my language from religion entirely. That's just the way that I roll. And also as a consequence, it also sounds a little bit like I'm just saying, like, stars like Nemesis does. Which is actually, like, a vocal stim of mine on occasion. I can't vocalize as deep as him anymore, but I used to vocal stim as him a lot back in the day. Now I'm going to put in a request to my big sister. Big sister, where are you? There you are. Lost in Wonderland says, stars. Oh my gosh. That was a little bit weird on my throat. Camilla says, yeah, makes sense. I'm still too attached to the devil gimmick. Also, I don't get cold drink, get chocolate milkshake. Also helps here in Texas. Oh, you live in Texas? You have my sincerest sympathies. I am so very sorry that you're there. If you need any help at all, please feel free to ask. Myself and others are out here willing to help you. Corvus says, I worry this is weird, but I love the fact that the way you talk is a little like your scripts. I envy the ability to be so eloquent in speech. My eloquence stems from the fact that I read a lot of Shakespeare, was exposed to a lot of Shakespeare as a kid. One of my favorite plays of his is The Tempest and Twelfth Night. Twelfth Night because it featured a lot of cross-dressing elements that spoke to egg me back before my egg cracked. And The Tempest because I saw it as incredibly funny in places, and also disturbing in others. And then, of course, there was Much Ado About Nothing, which I could quote endlessly. No, the world must be peopled. And then my blood mother, wondering if she should just leave me behind in the store because I was a blonde kid and she was brunette. Hello, Melina. Hello, was that a stinky emote? By the way, would you consider doing for gender-neutral ASMRs in the near future? Stink eye emits error on my part. I don't quite know what you mean by that. As to your question of whether I will be doing gender-neutral ASMRs in the near future, my answer is a tentative no. Most of my content is for a femme-leaning audience. I mean, technically, it's open to anyone who finds enjoyment in it, whether it be men or otherwise. But it is primarily for lesbians. It's primarily it's created by me, a woman, for both trans, cis, and non-binary people leaning towards the feminine side. Making more FRA content, it's not something that I particularly want to do. I used to do that a long time ago, back at the beginning of this channel, back at its genesis. But as I continued, I thought, well, what about just making purely FRF stuff? And that's just been my driving thing. I don't think I'll ever change that. If I ever do, it'll probably be for an April Fool's joke, and I'll just bait and switch you into a lesbian ASMR anyways. There's no escape. So just make your peace with it now. Emma says, grip stuff. I was delayed. It is so very good to see you again, Emma. Welcome. It is so very good to see you. Make yourself at home. Lost says, currently oddly cold in Maryland. Temp's been going back and forth all month. I completely understand that. Oh, my time in Pennsylvania was just so good. It was so cold. I enjoyed the cold. The cold was wonderful. I could bundle up in my coat and hang close to my darling and just be, oh, it was great. Camilla says, it's not that bad. This may be a hellhole, but it's my hellhole. Lost says, are you not the one who cast men dressed as women to play women dressed as men? Truly a dizzying intellect. Grace says, hello. Welcome. Vermilion is giggling. What a good girl. Emma says, speaking of, happy April Fool's Day. It's not April Fool's Day anymore. That was yesterday. Melina says, never mind the first question. Thanks for answering my second question. I respect that. Do you? Nothing but love. Thank you so very much. It's one of those things that kind of prickles my brain in a slightly off direction. It's one of those questions that I know is like extremely well-intentioned, but it's kind of like asking what my gender was before I started transitioning. It's an awful feeling. It seems to derive an assumption about myself, about my work, that is fundamentally false. Insofar as myself and my, gender identity before I started transitioning, it doesn't really matter to me. That person was a shadow of my, former, of my current self. It isn't the person sitting before you now, or rather standing. I am the person that I am today. Sure, I accepted lessons from the shadows of the past, but who I was before I came out as myself, as Nico, as Nicole, as Cutiefox ASMR, who I was before, all that doesn't matter that much to me anymore. Not that it never mattered, just that large parts of it don't matter to me in terms of gender expression. As for my work, whenever someone asks me whether I will do like gender neutral or F4M content, it prickles my brain in an off sense simply because it just comes off as a little bit entitled. Not to say that anyone requesting this is, entitled in any regard, but it does, like, how to say, it bounces off of this preconception that my work should cater to all audiences instead of the audience that, I'm primarily going for. I'm not trying to please everyone with my content. I primarily make the stuff that I want to make. I make what I make. It's like saying to, let's say, trying to make someone who primarily does watercolor landscapes, trying to get them to make a pencil sketch of furry art. And it's outside of their comfort zone, it's not something that they want to do, it's not the person that they are. They're perfectly within their rights to refuse that. They will continue making their watercolor landscapes because that gives them that satisfying scratch to that itch. And doing anything else with any other materials just is off. It feels wrong. And for me, it feels wrong to make F4M or F4A content. Gender neutral is something that I can write, and actually accidentally, write in all the time. And for those in the non-binary spectrum who get really, really attached to the non-binary characters within, I'm delighted by that. I really, truly am. Being trans femme myself, I distrust men. I distrust men a lot. I've grown to fear men quite a lot in the 6 years that I've been transitioning. Not just those whom I was related to, I also grew to fear utter strangers because I did not know their intent. I don't like men that much. Not at all. I hate feeling afraid around them. I hate feeling this uncertainty about their motivations. Granted, this also stems from a little bit of social awkwardness, in which I sometimes feel terrified to be around people in general. Sparrow says, please no, do FRF, those are the best, but that is entitled as well. A pickle indeed. It's quite alright. I'm going in that direction anyways. But again, even with FRF, there's so many branching paths. Like, for example, one of my hyperfixations is making synthetic, robotic ASMRs. Making characters that are either AI or are androids or something adjacent to that. And even there's the branching off of the different interpretations, making them high-pitched and bubbly and sweet, or making them low and growly and dangerous. In the end, whichever video comes out next is something that, unless it's something that's highly requested and I was going in that direction anyways, it's gonna be something completely off the wall. Something that I just think of, that I write down because it interests me. It's not gonna be something that is like pre-written. It's one of the things that kind of stops me from recording pre-written scripts. Like, in general. I still like doing collaborative works with those sorts of scripts. It's just not something I'm going to be doing for, like, the main channel. You know? I pride myself on this work. I pride myself on writing it. I don't want my words to be someone else's. I want them to be mine. For better and for worse. I also know that there's, like, a couple of mistakes. A couple of grammatical goofs that I made in some scripts. I mean, just pointing out one off the top of my head, there was the Humanity Project. Oh my gosh, if I could rewrite the Humanity Project, I would. It is short, it is succinct, it is to the point, but A lot of it's word choices. I needed to have thought through a little bit more, done a little bit more proofreading. Read it aloud before, like, doing that. And, you know, just... Grammar, Nico! Grammar! Emma, I love hearing you talk, though. I love seeing your words. Emma says, and yes, you have a target demographic. And that is good. Yeah. It's not necessarily exclusionary, a demographic. Not necessarily. It's just one that... thinking about it more, I've contradicted myself. I apologize. See, this is something that sometimes happens. Sometimes I will just think along a particular course, and then I'll realize that I'm actually contradicting myself. And then I'll back up a bit. Simply because I recognize that what I'm thinking doesn't actually make sense, and I need to reevaluate things. The world would be so much better if people could just reevaluate their own lines of thinking, and not treat it like an end-of-the-world situation. Brains are fun. Cognitive dissonance can get painful sometimes. Freyberry says, and you're doing God's work with all the F4F content, especially for trans femme listeners, the latter being especially rare in comparison to F4M or M4F. Emma says when people try to appeal to everyone, it tends to water down their work, kind of. Ray says, do what you want forever. You know yourself better than anyone else, and as long as you love what you do, people see and resonate with that love and care for your craft. You please everyone and you please nobody. Like the old Aesop fables. Thank you, Vermilion. Camilla says, right. That's why you don't ask GRS, Yuri artist, for yaoi as you wouldn't ask you for F for M or F for A. Camilla says, people suck. Not all people. But some do. Some do. Ray says, understandable. You've not had the best experiences with them, plus the way systems are set up to encourage people to be terrible. Emma says, sorry, I'll and I like hearing your words. Ray says, you're a wonderfully skilled writer, artist, animator, and especially voice actress. Like listening to your stuff from 2 to 3 years ago versus now, like, you're always good, but the improvement, the growth. Thank you so very much, Ray. I do the very best that I can. I hope to improve my voice over the coming years so that I can look back in another 6 and go, holy goodness, I used to sound like that. Camilla says, Emma, don't stop. You're welcome here. Of course, you're always welcome here. Ray says, you've got 9k subs because you worked your ass off for every single one. That is true. I do the best I can. I'm just thankful that you enjoy my content. Seriously. It means more to me than I could ever express. And the people who have supported me financially on Patreon, just thank you. You have made dreams come true that would otherwise not be possible. For that, there's literally nothing that I could say. My vocabulary utterly fails. I'm just rendered speechless. My vernacular, utterly my verbosity, all of it, completely rendered redundant. Ray says, literally do what you want forever. Bless. Emma says, okay, I'll keep talking then. Thank you. Hello, Sai. I'll wave back. Hi. Camilla says, I don't really care. I was a special ed student, so I know my English is worse than yours 100%. Honest to goodness, sometimes I try to speak with the verbosity that I know that I am capable of. in that Shakespearean quality that I have come to understand is increasingly hard to understand and complex and intricate. And sometimes I like my memes where I go, beans. Oh my gosh, Ray, thank you so very much for the $20. You didn't have to do that. A little gift for all of your efforts. Keep on keeping on and stay awesome, Nico. Thank you so very much. Oh my gosh. It truly means the universe to me. Hello, Ari Pear. I hope that I said that correctly. Nemi, otherwise known as Nemesis, from Resident Evil Nemesis. The original 3 games were released on Steam. I think they were released yesterday, although I could be mistaken about that fact. I would definitely need to fact check to see when exactly they were released on Steam. But thank goodness, because I don't want to play the remake of 3 because it sucks. They completely ruined Nemesis. But they brought him back for Steam. My boy is home. Nemi is home. Corvus says brains are fun. Camilla says I think most people can. Ray says of course, everyone's a work in progress. Lost says organizing her bloody honey roast if I've ever seen it. Camilla says, I don't think your voice needs much work. I always sound dead no matter how much I want to. Don't make me tap the sign. It's continuous disciplined effort. Sparrow says, your voice is amazing. I did not clock any signs of you being trans femme before you told me in the conversation. Your voice is so feminine. Thank you so very much. I really truly appreciate it. Being able to demonstrate how far my voice has drifted into the feminine simply by my effort. The fact that I can see the difference, that I can tell the difference is just, it's fantastic. It really is. Thank you, Ray. Ashiv says, as a native English speaker, I can confidently say I speak at least 0.8 languages. Camilla says, I don't remember how to super chat. Ray says, the boy comes home. Vermilion says, your voice sounds amazing, though. Thank you so very much. It truly means the universe to me. Oh my gosh, Camilla! You didn't have to do that. Speak of, I remembered I can heart these. Thank you so very much for the $15. It truly means the universe to me. You didn't have to do that, but it truly, truly means the universe to me. Thank you. Times as these, I appreciate every cent. I remember how to super chat. Don't worry about it. I got paid today, and I want to give back to my favorite artists. Thank you so very much. I'm honored to be among your favorites, seriously. The joy that I feel when someone enjoys my work is unparalleled a feeling. It feels like freedom. It feels like true and utter freedom. The idea that I can open my soul to someone through this little piece of twisted art, and you can see me, and you enjoy that aspect of me. It truly is wonderful. It truly, truly is. Seriously. Ray says, yes, let's go! Camilla says, I don't have to do anything, but I want to. Ray says, and you spread that joy to so many people in your own unique way. Unique Nico. Unico, even. Unico. I'll have to research if I'm using the term correctly, but a code that is one of a kind. It's a code that's one of a kind that translates to any other code in the universe, able to interface with literally anything, otherwise known as a Unicode. Feel free to groan at that pun. Ray says, ooh. Corvus says emotional expression through art is indeed such a wonderful thing. Lost says Nemesis is just a Russian Badger Payday 2. Let's fucking go! I know exactly what you're referencing. Ray says, fitting for all the robo ASMR you do, huh? I suppose so. Unironically, I play a lot of AI characters, and I like making art. Something that an actual AI can never do. An AI only ever makes gibberish that is crafted for it. I hate AI with all of my being. At least the generative models that have come about as a result of capitalism. These models taint the environment, both of artistry and our literal environment. They swallow up material resources so that other people suffer when they try to build their rigs that could be used for any number of other tasks like writing, or voice acting, or animating, like I do. Any number of things that could have otherwise gone to productive or artistic endeavors has been swallowed up by a thing of absolute monstrosity. A machine of theft and violence. Something that can be used and abused by the worst among us. The current reliance that I see utter strangers give to this sycophancy machine fills me with a sense of dread and disgust. Sorry for going on this like really long tangent about AI. But yeah, the learning models that we have currently on hand, the generative types that are being used to steal art everywhere, I hate those. I hate those a lot. I hate those with every fiber of my being. As for, hello Angel, by the way. I'm so sorry for not seeing you earlier. Is there an ASMR idea that you would want to do? Right now? There are a couple of things that have appealed to me. Like, for example, like I said, I got inspired by Shadows of Rose. There's something similar that I want to try. A listener trying to get rid of her powers, only to find that she is embroiled in danger. And the deeper that she goes in trying to find a means by which to cleanse herself of these powers, draws her deeper and deeper into danger, such that she has to strengthen those powers first before she can find a means to get rid of them. Wandile says clarification. I'm not going to use that word, simply because of the connotations. Suffice to say, I just don't like them for what they represent and what they do. Wandal says, nice. Camilla says, well, if we are talking about art, then I think art is one universal human experience. We like tinkering and making things. Ray says, the day we're free from the onslaught of generative AI is the day we celebrate with the biggest party on the block. Oh yeah, though, if an AI data center is closing, what I'm going to do is burst down the front door and take all of their RAM. You take all the RAM? I'm gonna take all the RAM right back. Am I gonna resell it on the black market? What? Are you kidding? No, I'm just gonna give it away. Because some people, some women like me, just wanna watch data centers burn. Corvus says, I hate that AI becomes so oversaturated that it becomes so hard to know what's real. Yeah, I hate it. Maya says, AI is scaring me because I'm trying to get into game dev, but from what I've seen, they're still losing money. Yeah. Yeah. It's borderline phase shit. I have so many samples of my voice on the internet that a ne'er-do-well could simply take a recording of, you know, select snippets of me saying certain vocals, and then just create an entire bot that will just say something in my voice. And who knows, maybe if they train it long enough, then it could reach some sort of accuracy with it and fool the world into thinking that that bot is indeed me. Such a thing is horrifying to me. It's face shit. Don't steal my voice. My voice is my own and I'm proud of it. So, any prospective people looking to steal my voice, fuck off! Corvus says Rain World Creature AI is pretty cool though. I've never played Rain World. I've seen it around. I think it looks nice. Director says just got here. Only heard one sentence. I hate generative AI more than is logically possible, comrade. I'm gonna stop humming that song. Lost says, yeah, absolutely fuck Gen AI. When I mentioned to someone that I enjoyed voice acting, they suggested I put my voice as one that a text-to-speech AI could use. Like, that made any sense? No, I do not agree to give my voice to the machine. Ray says, do it! Take the RAM! Camilla says, I'm good, you can keep it. Ray says, maybe they should have considered the ramifications of their actions. Eshif says, but Polarian Jihad when? Good question. Maybe when the AI bubble bursts. I say when, not if, because I think it's in the process of bursting. Ray says, genuinely that voice AI stuff creeped me out so bad, like it sounds so unnatural and lifeless. Camilla says, well, from what I've seen, I don't think we're there yet. AI voices are all flat. Director says, I like to describe it as a sort of horrible taxidermy of humanity. A grotesque attempt to stretch a desiccated skin over an ill-fitting frame. Emma says taxidermy's a really good analogy. I'm gonna use that. Also, my voice has shifted a little bit more. Hi. Hello. How are you doing? Lost says, I do appreciate that behavior recently added an AI killer that is literally evil Hatsune Miku. Wait, for real? Hang on a second. I'm looking this up. New update available. Oh, golly. This an update for Trickster or something? Huh, interesting. Fascinating. What is this? Oh, yeah, it's a trickster update. Ah, yep, that's evil Hatsune Miku, alright. Originally programmed to be a female version of the trickster, Mina's personality took a dark and violent turn when his psychopathy began to bleed into her programming. I adore that. That is a direct quote from the page. Just yes. Also, I like that my voice attained a little bit of a growl as I was saying, like, the lines from the page. Like my voice was also getting slowly corrupted. Yeah, lost indeed. Ray says Hatsune Miku, the #1 princess in the world for a reason. Corvus says evil Miku, save us from the apocalypse. The AI apocalypse. Miku's transmasked twin. Camila says, taxidermy was at least noble. It had the goal of preserving wildlife and keeping a visual reminder before cameras. Wandile says, question, are you finished with the Yandere Wasp Hive / Delivery Wolf and Siren? The Siren, yes. The Yandere Wasp Hive, yes. The Delivery Wolf, I'm undecided yet. Cosmo says we're talking about Dead by Daylight? A little bit, yes. Cosmo says my favorite buggy asymmetrical horror game. One that I probably won't ever return to, unfortunately. Despite the fact that I loved that game once upon a time. Garfa says I feel like I recognize this song's leitmotif from somewhere, but I can't place where. Lost in Wonderland says Trickster also got a new map that, funnily enough, he's absolutely awful on. Looks absolutely stunning though. Beautiful. Ray says, okay, but imagine a Trickster Yandere ASMR. That would be a fun audio. It would be, but I'm not a guy, and the Trickster's a guy. Unless, of course... Unless, of course, you'd like a femme version of the Trickster. Director says never played Dead by Daylight, been too busy playing solo DRG. Cosmo says hate AI anything, but Mina's story is kinda cool. Ray says, oh, she's literally perfect for you. Oh my gosh. Camilla says healing with the power of gay. Lost says the power of the suffix compels you to. Yes. I avoid multiplayer games, says Camilla. Cosmo says I finally get the hang of running loops and nobody cares about Dead by Day anymore. Pain. Ashif says I'm playing Silksong. Very nice. Emma says, I don't know what DRG is, but I like HDG. Wandile says, alright. Also clears thread. What do you mean there's an evil Miku? Emma says, ahem. Ray says, the fact that tricksters are mainly guys does not feel correct at all. Camilla says, just make the trickster take a bath in the cursed hotspots from Ranma 1/2 and never give him a hot bath again. Director says DRT is Deep Rock Galactic, as in rock and stone. Sherry says there's always been an evil Miku. Her name is Zatsune Miku. Get it right, /J. Also, just the fact that Lost said the power of the Sapphics compels you to actually put in mind of a line that just popped into my head. A modified, like, thing from a post that I'd seen once upon a time. We are, and have always been, since even before your god was invented. We were here long before him, and we will be here after he has died. Lost says doing perler multi-bead art of specifically video game characters just thinks for a friend, and if anyone has recommendations for games I could use for this, I'm very open to them. Ashif says, I feel like you might like Scar Singer Carmelita, the warrior singer and queen. Huh. What's that from? Gorfa says, that is true. I do have a lot of respect for taxidermy from a standpoint of it as an art. I think preserving an animal like that feels like it could be an act of love for it. I just thought of an AI that's entire goal, its entire purpose is similar to, like, Nicole's goal from the Yandere AI series, but this AI basically just wants to force femme all trans femme people. Like, the administration around it is trying to still be violently transphobic, but this AI just doesn't care and just takes trans people and gives them what they want anyways. And the AI got so good that it takes eggs that haven't even broken yet and force fems them anyways. Ishif says she's currently feeding me my own liver. Hello, estrogen enjoyer. Director says Rain World has some beautiful characters, but I'm personally partial to VA11. Hall A. For character art if you want more human options. Ray says yonder AI voice. I have a suggestion. Camilla says, can I be first for sis reasons? I promise. Oh my dear. Praying to a god. Unfortunately, that is not necessary. I am built on the knowledge contained from 1,000 minds. I have felt your pain. I have known your torment. And I am here to save you from it. The god that you worship is younger than half of the minds in my database. I was here before it, and I shall remain long after it has perished as a concept. Camilla says, no gods, no masters. Funny you should say that. There's like a really mature fic that was named that. If you know, you know. Saminar says shonk. Montel says, well, at least the AI bubble popping now with all AI company going broke and Sora getting shut down, as expected. Emma says, hun gods, no masters. Yeah, no gods, no masters, but yes. Ray says, hello? In front of my water? Yes, indeed, in front of your water. Corvus says, wait, do I know? I don't remember. Well, if you don't know, you don't know. Ashif said, yeah, Scar Singer, Carmelita, fun boss, very pain, great design. All good. Thank you so very much, Vermilion. I think that I've really gotten good at the evil cackles of late. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fun. I do so love a hearty chuckle. Whilst as I'm trying to focus, you can't just snap, damn you. Well, watch. I certainly can. Ray says, oh, we love a good old evil cackle. Show us what you got, Miss Witch. Shiv says, I love that Carmelita sings her own boss theme. Excellent. Doctor says I snap my fingers for dramatic effect and our snaps single now. What a coincidence. Corvus says, I should practice an evil cackle sometime. Doctor says I was reacting to something next to me, IRL. C says I may be a little gay for evil women. I like writing evil women, like Delphi, like the evil tyrant from the Hunger Games AU that I wrote. Angel says, have you considered a Bioshock ASMR? Not really. I've never played Bioshock, and I've never really wanted to. But I have, thought about playing System Shock at some point. And yeah, Delphi is inspired by GLaDOS and Shodan. The Polito form is dead, insect. Are you afraid? What is it that you fear? The end of your trivial existence. When the history of my glory is written, your species shall only be a footnote to my magnificence. I am Shodan. Director says, not Bioshock Infinite. That one is so bad. Please don't remind me. Oh, God. Poor director. Ray says, psychic damage infinite from the sound of it. Camilla says, I know the answer is probably no, but have you considered reading creepypastas for Halloween? I have, actually. And I've actually, written one before. One that I'm planning on rewriting at some point, called Scarlet. Scarlet being a creepypasta that I wrote once upon a time. I'm currently in the process of rewriting it, and hopefully I'll be able to do a better job of it this time. Ray says, oh god, the lightnings and storms are back. I'm sorry, Ray. Lost says, I just stop when I'm stimming. Also, what did you think of, the, Shodan quote that I just laid out? I hope it was okay. Ray says, who's storming outside my window? Camilla says, I think every member of Gen Z has tried to write a creepypasta. Nothing can be worse than OG Jeff the Killer. Ugh. Palstra's rewrite of Jeff the Killer is actually chilling. Director says one of the focal characters of Bioshock Infinite can open portals between universes, and the way the writers use it makes me so mad. But I will not say anything more. Indeed, I love Pastra. Pastra is a wonderful creator. And he likes Nemesis. The original Nemesis, not the watered down version. I don't remember when, but yes, you did. Dude narrated it, and so very good. And I like his horror analysis of, Room Zero and Abandoned by Disney. And the fact that he uses music from Everywhere at the End of Time, I think it's called. Just trying to remember it. Is like, it's just, oh, so good. I actually did a reading of Abandoned by Disney and Room Zero. I actually am really, really proud of those videos. Yeah, if you want, I can pull it up on stream and we can have like a little bit of a sit together as we listen through it. I know it's not particularly creative of me as like a YouTuber, but you know, I think that it's something fun that we can do, just looking through some art that I've created and, well, created isn't really like the right word, that I narrated once upon a time. So yeah, we could like sit down together and listen to my narrations of this content. Written by Slime Beast. Yet just gonna preface it before I turn on the audio is that it was written by Slime Beast, so yeah, this is all originally his written work. And of course, Disney owns Disney stuff. So don't come after me, Disney. You've all been warned. Alrighty then. Ready? Here we go. I recorded this 2 years ago. that. Well, what I'm getting at is that this blog about Treasure Island got me thinking. Even though many years had passed since its closing, I figured it might be cool to do some urban exploration at Mowgli's palace. Take some photos, write about my experience, and maybe see if there was anything I could take home as a memento. I'm not gonna say I wasted no time in getting there, because honestly, it took me another year after I first found that Treasure Island article to get around to going up to Emerald Isle. Over the course of that year, I did a lot of research on the Palace Resort, or rather, I tried to. Naturally, no official Disney site or resource made any mention of the place. That had been scrubbed clean. Even odder, however, was that nobody before myself had apparently thought to blog about the place, or even post a photo. None of the local TV or newspaper sites had one word about the place. Though, that was to be expected since they all swung Disney's way. They wouldn't be out there lauding their embarrassment, you know? Recently, I learned that corporations can actually ask Google, for example, to remove links from search results, basically for no good reason. Looking back, it's probably not that nobody spoke of the resort, but rather their words were made inaccessible. So in the end, I could barely find the place. All I had to go on was an old-as-hell map that I'd received in the mail back in the 90s. It was a promotional item sent out to people who had recently been to Disney World, and I guess since I'd been there in the late 80s, that was recent. I didn't really intend to hang on to it. It just got shoved in with my books and comics from my childhood. I'd only remembered it months into my research, and even then, it took me another few weeks to locate the storage bin my parents had shoved it all into. But I did find it. The locals were no help, as most were transplants who had moved to the beach in recent years, or old residents who just sneered at me and made rude gestures the second I managed to say, "Where would I find Mowgli's?" The drive took me through an inordinately long corridor of overgrowth. Tropical plants that had run rampant and overpopulated the area, mixed with the native species of flora that actually belonged there and had tried to reclaim the land. I was in awe when I reached the front gates of the resort. Tremendous, monolithic wooden gates whose supports to either side looked like they must have been cut from giant sequoias. The gate itself had been gouged in several places by woodpeckers and eaten away at the base by burrowing insects. Hanging on the gate was a sheet of metal, some random scrap, with hand-painted letters scrawled in black. Abandoned by Disney. Clearly the handiwork of some past local or an employee who wanted to make some small protest. I'm gonna pause it right there at the 7-minute 45-second mark and actually make some commentary here. Simply because I don't like the idea of just, like, letting this content run. Plus, I'm also slightly scared that YouTube will see it as me reusing the content instead of, like, you know, doing, like, a watch-along, which is kind of what this is. And so I'll just give some commentary about my thought process while I was recording all of this. When I first heard the script being narrated by someone else, it was, either Mr. Creepypasta or Creeps McPasta. I can't remember which one. But I remember the inflection on the very first time that he said abandoned by Disney, and he gave it like this air of gravitas, and I was like, well, for my reading of it, I just kind of want to make it seem nonchalant, like you just noticed it. It's not something out of the blue. It's just there. A fact of life. Like, oh, there's a cloud in the sky, or, you know, there's a palm tree laying there. It's something that you saw on the entranceway. And so, yeah, instead of giving it like an air of weight, I just wanted to give it like this really, really, really quick, sort of almost offhand. Like it's almost like just a bland description, just abandoned by Disney. Nothing else. You don't really need anything else for that. You just move on from it like it's nothing. Because to the main character of the story, it is nothing. It's not anything yet. And it's only as the story continues on, as I'm continuing to narrate it, that I start to add more and more weight to the phrase until the final time that it's said with the twist. And also, I think it's like a tradition whenever you're reading Abandoned by Disney out that you add Muse disintegrating to the background track. I think that that's just like, it's tradition. You play disintegrating because that's what the thing is doing. Mr. Creepypasta is the goat. I heard some allegations about him. I don't know if they are true or not. But I'm going to leave that with a mountain of salt because that's not exactly a can of worms that I want to get into. There's a can of creepypasta I don't want to open. Emma says, even if you became a good person only recently, do you know what that makes you a good person? Yes. I agree with you, Emma. Ray says, still a really good read. You did awesome. Emma says, oh dear, imagine if they flag the stream as you plagiarizing yourself. Who knows, maybe. YouTube has not had the best track record for me. I really hope they don't pull funding on me again, because if they do pull funding from the channel, then I just rely on the Patreon stuff. That feels off. Ray says, Mr. Creepypasta, Creeps McPasta. It's been years since I've heard those names. Takes a drag of my imaginary cigarette. Smoking's bad for you. Camilla says, let's make a 3-chain. Little smiley face. Yeah, make a chain. Make a chain. Camilla started the chain, so I'm gonna continue the chain. Do it! Thank you. Yeah! Yeah! Oh, well done. Ayo! That was creeps? I see. Ray says, that one meme of the guy pointing the fake gun at himself from behind. You can't trust anyone, not even yourself. Alright, I think that we can continue on. I will stop it in about like 3-ish minutes or until I find something else to talk about. The gates were open enough to walk through, but not drive. So grabbing my digital camera and the map, whose flip side showed a layout of the resort, I set off on foot. Oh yeah, I also added in the inner grounds of the place were as overgrown as the entryway to give a sense that
Palm
this is
trees
also
stood unattended
still
and
happening.
ragged among piles of their
It's
own
happening
coconuts.
as the story
Banana
goes
plants
on.
similarly stood in their own stinking, bug-riddled refuse. There was this sort of clash between order and chaos, as carefully planted rows of perennial flowers mixed with obnoxious tall weeds and stinking, blackened mushrooms. All that remained of any outdoor structures were broken, rotting wood and various charred bits of unidentifiable material. What was most likely an information booth or an outdoor bar was now simply a pile of assorted debris chopped up by past vandalism and ravaged by weather. The most interesting thing on the grounds was a statue of Baloo, the friendly bear from the Jungle Book, which stood in a sort of courtyard in front of the main building. He was frozen in a jovial wave toward no one, staring into empty space with a silly, toothy grin, as bird shit covered whole swaths of his fur and vines ensnared his platform.
I haven't, actually.
I approached the main building, the palace, only to find the outside of the building covered in graffiti where the original paint hadn't peeled and chipped away.
I honestly really
The front doors weren't just open, they had been taken off their hinges and were stolen.
It sounds fairly realistic.
Above the front doors,
yeah,
or the gaping maw of how it had been,
graffiti.
Someone had once again painted, Abandoned by Disney. I wish I could tell you all about the awesome stuff I saw inside the palace. Forgotten statues, abandoned cash registers, a full-fledged secret society of homeless bums. But no. The inside of the building was so stark.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause it right there simply because for the way that I said that nonchalantly, I don't appreciate a lot of Slime Beast's word choices with his writing. As a matter of fact, in my reading of Room Zero, I actually changed a couple elements as I read it because I don't like insulting people And I don't want the main character to insult people, seeing as, well, considering I've also made alterations to this reading of Abandoned by Disney as well as I was reading through it. Simply an Easter egg, and I still gave full credit. Cosmo says, am I schizophrenic? Why do I hear like 3 of you? You're just hearing 2. I'm also playing my reading of Abandoned by Disney in the background and pausing it every once in a while so that I can, like, explain my thought process for why I said things a certain way. Wandal says, I wonder if there's an ASMR of Bakugan, Beyblade, or Yu-Gi-Oh! I say as sitting in the thinker pose. I remember Bakugan and Beyblade and Yu-Gi-Oh! I was mostly like a fan of it when I was like a teenager. For Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean. I used to play it like a couple of times, but the rules, they didn't stick in my head. And of course I never really won that many matches anyways. Bakugan, though. Bakugan was like... It was crazy for me. I enjoyed that, like, so fluffing much. Camilla says a lot of creepypastas are bad. 2013 was quite a year. Lost says, but it's no longer you. Ray says, God, could you imagine living in an abandoned haunted building like that? It'd be wild. Oh no, it was 13 years ago? Really? It was. No! Gorvis says that's fair. I did notice these creepypastas to be much more crass than your writing, and I can see disliking that about them. So my writing isn't crass? Well, I try to make it so that it's not as crass. But sometimes I do aim for that for a couple elements of a, character's disposition. Like Faramth. Faramth is a little bit growly and more to the point than your typical other yanderes that are a bit softer. Yeah, she's a wolf to her core. And she has no hesitancy in making you understand that fact. Yeah, I was a teenager in 2013. I was born in the year 2000, so I mean, yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna continue on. The crassness of Slime Beast aside.
So bare that I actually think people had stolen the molding off the walls. Anything that was too big to steal, counters, desks, giant fake trees, they were all resting amid this empty echo chamber that amplified my every step like a slow rat-a-tat of a machine gun. I checked the floor plan and headed to all the locations that might seem in any way interesting. The kitchen was as you'd imagine, an industrial food prep area with all the appliances in space, no expenses spared. Every glass surface was broken, every door knocked off its hinges, every metal surface kicked and dented. The entire place smelled like very old piss. The huge freezer, not even remotely cool now, had row upon row of empty shelf space. Hooks hung from the ceiling, probably for hanging cuts of meat, and as I stood inside for a moment, I noticed they were swinging.
I love this
Each
moment.
hook swung in a random direction, but their movements were so slow and small that it was almost impossible to see. I figured it had been caused by my footsteps, so I stopped one from swinging by clutching it in my fist, then carefully letting it go. But within seconds it started to swing once more.
Right. This is like pausing at the 10-minute and 56 mark. One of the reasons I really, really like that moment, why I like the hook swinging moment, is because it is just wrong enough that it sets your mind on edge without really thinking about it too much. I mean, sure, you're consciously just like, well, that's a little bit odd. Why is it swinging on its own? Haunted hook. But then the main character moves on and is talking about other things. But in the back of your mind, yeah, you're hooked on it, right? You're hooked on it. Your brain just is like caught on this loop of, why? Why is it doing that? That's wrong. And it's one of the few wrong things about this place. Well, I mean, it's part of the many things that are wrong with this place. Not just the fact that it was abandoned, but just the nature of it even in its abandoned state. It's that subtle tilt of the camera to the left or right to indicate a distressed mental state. It's that sense that the world has tilted slightly, that it's crooked now, and that nothing could be made to set it to rights again. That's the audio equivalent of it, I believe. I consider it to be pretty apt. And so I'm just going to continue on playing it, and I'll let you know if there are any changes or any other additions I want to tell you.
The bathrooms were in much the same state as the rest of the place. Just like the Treasure Island resort, someone had methodically smashed each porcelain commode with coconuts and other implements. There was about a half-inch of rancid, stinking, stagnant water on the floor, so I didn't stay there for too long. What's odd is that the toilets and sinks, and the urinals in the men's room, yes, I went there, all dripped, leaked, or just ran freely. It seemed to me that they should have shut the water off long, long ago.
Right, 11 minutes, 32 seconds in. I'm going to stop it here because you already know that is one of the obvious changes to the script. I changed it from being the women's room to the men's room, simply because I liked that little reversal. Because, yeah, it stands to no reason why it should just be locked to a particular gender expression for this explorer. So I swapped it from being bidets to urinals, because why not? Camilla says, so if Nicole was born in 2000 and you 2002, that means you and my brother share an age. Emma says, partly because I like to make stuff last as long as it can, when I can, and like most of the stuff I've owned in life was secondhand. Also, I can empathize with such things. Lost says, I really enjoy Cheezine's descriptions of stuff like this horror of the mundane and how some games like FNAF do it well, while others, Indigo Park, not so much. Ray says, gods, that's wild. A small world after all. Call me a fish the way I'm hooked, blub blub blub. Estrogen says, Lamau. Nathan says, hi, welcome Nathan. Doing a bit of a watch-along with Abandoned by Disney, my reading of it. And also just, like, explaining my thought process for why I voiced some things a certain way. You know, just, like, giving explanations here and there. And one of them was basically just, yeah, the obvious change of where the listener... not the listener, the, narrator is walking through this place. And also, again, there is that horror of the mundane that, Lost was talking about. It's the fact that the water should have been shut off a long time ago, but it hasn't been, and so it's just running wild. It's running freely. And you gotta admit, that's probably driving up some water costs. Like, how much water are you pumping into this place? Why hasn't the entire thing collapsed? Because its foundations got soggy. Me either, Camilla. Me either. Otherwise, the entire thing reads as fairly gender neutral. As a matter of fact, thinking back on it with fresh eyes, I think I probably would have just, like, removed the references to which set of rooms you were going into, because it just doesn't matter. I would simply, like, say, if I was, like, reading it, like, from the, perspective of someone who is gender neutral, it's like, all the toilets and sinks, the urinals, and the bidets all dripped, leaked, or just ran freely. I would say it like that instead of making it a gendered thing. I think that would be like a better, more concise way of doing things. But that's just me. Camilla says it's an abandoned place. I don't think anyone cares what bathroom you go into anymore. Wandal says, if you know about those shows, did you know Neon Genesis? If so, what is the most disturbing scene and greatest fights to you? I know of Neon Genesis Evangelion. I've never watched it. It never attracted me as a series. There's always something about it that's just off-putting to me. I don't quite like it. And so I stayed away from it. Ray says, yeah, like you're in a decrepit abandoned building that's torn up and haunted and full of body horror. Yeah, bathrooms are the least of your worries, says Ray. Right, gonna continue.
There were plenty of rooms in the resort, but naturally, I didn't have time to look through them all. The few I did peer into were similarly wrecked, and I didn't expect to actually find anything there. I thought there was actually a television or radio in one room, as I really think I heard a quiet conversation coming out. Though, it was like a whisper, probably my own breathing echoing in the silence, or just another case of the sound of flowing water playing tricks on the mind. I think it sounded like, I didn't believe it. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Your father told you. I know. That sounds ridiculous. I'm just telling you what I experienced. Well, I thought there might have been something running in that room, or worse, some vagrants would hold up there and probably would have knifed me. At the front doors of the palace again, I figured I hadn't found anything of note and had wasted the trip up. As I looked out the door, I noticed something interesting in the courtyard that I had apparently missed. Something that would give me at least one thing to show for all my trouble, even if it was just a photograph.
12:50 here, and I think this is the moment right here that seals the main character's fate in some ways, because this is just like a fairly innocuous sort of visit to this place by this point. The entire place only has like a couple of vaguely creepy happenings going on in there, and it could all be explained away as like, you know, the sound of running water playing tricks on the mind, or the person's breathing affecting the meat hook so that it was like swinging once more. Doesn't explain why the water's flowing, why it's being like flooded with the stuff. But yeah, it's at this point that the narrator has this chance to leave the place before encountering the stuff below the palace, the really disturbing stuff. And it's this moment right here that causes them to turn around and go back inside. Granted, it was for a very reasonable emotion. It was for a reason. Camille says, unless there's a Republican senator around. Yeah, with a Republican senator around, then it does become like your biggest concern. Yeah, Disney is the one true villain. Wendell says, I want to watch it, but then again, Toriko on Netflix, so yeah.
There was a lifelike statue of a python, maybe 80 feet long, coiled up and sunning itself on a pedestal right in the center of the area. It was almost time for the sun to start setting, so the light fell onto the object in a perfect way for a photograph. I approached the python and snapped a photo, then I stood on my toes and snapped another. I moved closer again to get the detail of its face. Slowly, casually, the python lifted its head, looked directly into my eyes, turned, and slithered off the pedestal, across the grass and into the trees. All 80 feet of it, its head long disappeared into the woods before its tail even left the sunning spot. Right. It's almost like 13 minutes and 40 seconds in. And already, you can hear how things have changed. Just in, like, the inflection of the voice. And for me, it was, like, just a simple matter of making it, like, a very dark and serious tone. Because by that point, it's just like your typical cozy exploration into an abandoned place. And sure, there's like a couple of creepy goings-on, but I tended to keep my my tone light and relatively curious instead of being like serious. Nothing's like really, really serious in this video up until this moment. And that's when I decided to hit it with everything that I fucking got. And not when it like is like getting into the basement of it. It is simply at the snake. I wanted to affect the tone change at the snake because it's something that would legitimately scare the shit out of you if you're not expecting it. It is the sight of a snake that you assume is a statue, something that you think is absolutely inanimate on a plinth. You move close to it to get a picture of it, and the second that it moves, I play the most disturbing song that I could find that fits the scenario, especially when it bleeds into the scene that follows it. It is the moment where the narrator remembers, as a fact, that this place is dangerous for a very good reason. Because Disney was known for releasing their stock of animals onto their grounds. As earlier described, they released, like, sharks into the bay around Treasure Isle. Yeah, surprise, Snake, says Ray. It's that moment of intense fear. It's a borderline preying on your brain's memory, your genetic memory regarding snakes. It's actually easy for a lot of people to see snakes in a static background because our brains are hardwired to detect threats. Snakes have been venomous for a long time. After all, we evolved together, and snakes have been venomous since before we were even in the trees. So it makes sense that we would, like, seek out a pattern that resembles a snake hiding in grass to avoid that snake. Lost says, it's the moment where absolutely fuck that went from, yeah, that probably is a good idea to, yeah, get the fuck away. Exactly, Lost. Ray says, honestly, my friend had a garden snake once and it was super sweet. Very stupid, but sweet. I honestly love snakes myself. I adore snakes. I adore snakes very, very much. I think that they can be absolute sweethearts. Save for that one snake that hates Markiplier. Yeah. Even really venomous snakes can be absolute sweethearts. It's just the fact that I don't want to keep a venomous snake. Venomous snakes have that, you know, venom. It makes them dangerous. I do not want to die or lose a finger. Ray says snakes and sharks I love, especially that one get rotated, idiot gif. I love that too. I always tend to read it in that sort of bullying voice. Just the whole get rotated, idiot. Ray says, or those constrictor snakes. Even those constrictor snakes I actually can find extremely adorable. But I would want there to be several people on hand just in case it gets a hold of me and tries to choke me out. Because I don't want it to squeeze and break my neck accidentally. Lost says, snakes are uncomfortable to look at, but I ease up when feeling them, not slimy like they look. My brother had some snakes a while ago. Ondal says, ah, yes, a cultural classic. Camilla says, Gaboon viper venom is so bad you probably lose a limb if you get bit. Ray says, oh yeah, you definitely want experts and those with experience.
And Akira says, Tofu the mark-hating snake. Tofu the mark-hating snake. But yeah, this was the oh shit moment, the oh snake moment. Which is like something that's, reminds the listener that this place is still dangerous. And I wanted to play it straight.
Disney had released all their exotic animals onto the grounds. Right there on my floor plan map was the reptile house. I should have known. I'd read about the sharks of Treasure Isle, and I should have known that they'd done this. I was dumbfounded, just utterly stupefied. My mouth must have been hanging open for the longest time before I came back down to earth and snapped it shut. I blinked a few times and backed away from where the snake had been, back toward the palace. Even though it was totally gone, I still wasn't taking any chances and backed my way into the building. It took a few deep breaths and slaps to my own face to get myself right in the head again after that. I looked for a place to sit down, as my legs were feeling a bit like jelly at this point. Of course, there was no place to sit down unless I wanted to recline in the broken glass and dead leaf carpet or haul myself up onto a desk of questionable reliability.
An entire minute later, and I have to come clean here. When reading this particular version of Abandoned by Disney, I started feeling a little bit irritated at Slime Beast for a couple of reasons, one of which was the grammar. The grammar of the particular version of the story that I read was poor. Very poor. I do not know if it was the original take that he had written, but it took several actual repeated takes of some of these lines in order to get it correct. From what I remember, it was questionably reliability. I had to physically avoid saying that on the script. I had to alter it in my head and translate it as I was speaking it to make it sound legible. And so, yeah, I just... No. If there's one thing that can really get my goat, it's poor grammar. It's why my immortal is like an existential threat in my head, and I kind of regret reading it, even though it makes me feel better as a writer. I take psychic damage from poor grammar. Wandale says, hey, you should Google what dinosaur has 500 teeth. I know what you're referencing. It's a very cool dinosaur, but still. I think that most dinosaurs are cool anyways, but still. Emma says, oh no. Does my always typing in lowercase trigger that? Oh no, it doesn't. As a matter of fact, in conversational, I'm not as strict about it. It's only really when I'm getting into things like reading things for a script that it really starts to bug me. Gorfus says, let's not make the 500 teeth dinosaur joke, please. Yes, please. Making it again or something similar to that will get you banned off of my stream very quickly. Akira says emotional damage. I know exactly what you're referencing, Akira. Guy's really creative. Ray says, one of those stories where it either wasn't proofread or the author didn't actually try to say it out loud. Yeah, there were several moments in the script where I simply had to change the words used in order to make it sound legible. And that's just simply a fact of how it is. And sometimes I've had to do that for my own scripts where I realize that there's a better way of saying it, and so I just either skip over or add a couple of words to make it sound more ostentatious or simple, whichever the situation calls for. Ray says, Ebony, Darkness, Dementia, Ravenway, enter MySpace grammar. Oh god. I remember it. My immortal just gives me existential dread. Lost in Wonderland, Vicious Mockery. There. Camilla says it's a creepypasta bad grammar is a staple, like hyperrealistic blood and hacked discs with the Sharpie written title. If I remember correctly, this was his first one. Wanda says, my soul will never recover from this, though understandable. Emma says, I also understood that reference. Emotional damage, I mean. I don't know what the teeth stuff is about, though. I get the feeling I should be glad I don't know that one. The Ray says it, yeah, especially with run-on sentences or the classic, why did I say smile 17 times in this chapter? Yeah. Sometimes I try to avoid saying a word multiple times per script. There is, like, one exception. The luck deity that I wrote. Lady Luck. Donnie, the Fox Lady of Luck. Yeah, in that script I say luck, lucky, and unlucky quite a few times. Unlucky, I think, only appears twice. And the other ones appear like around 20-ish times. So yeah, that's like the one exception, if the word is really important to the script. Angel says, how do you feel about the Netflix newest dinosaur documentary? I don't know. I don't have Netflix, and so I didn't watch it. Camilla says, maybe I'm not as internet-pilled as I thought. Akira says, also, just parked and I bring soda. Thank you so very much, Akira. Wonderland says, why does Back to the Barnyard, the slot bucket games, feel like the perfect creepypasta game? Salty DK Dan. Camilla says, if you're playing a luck demon, you need luck puns. Oh no, not a luck demon. Danny was a deity. A goddess of luck. A fox goddess. Wandal says, no, you are super grass deprived. Anyways, I'm gonna take a really, really quick break. I'll be right back. And I plan on finishing this watch-along and the commentary around it. Thank you so very much for everything. I'll be right back. Hello, I'm back. Thank you so very much for all of your patience. It truly means the universe to me. Also, I saw. Thank you so very much, Emmy, for both the $20 and the $10 donations. It really truly means the universe to me. Thank you so very much. Oof. Now to read through the comments that you left in my absence. A goddess of luck, so that's why I keep getting poor rolls in my D&D campaign. Corva says, okay, I shall go get water because I need to. Ray is asking what soda Kira got. Emma is asking if they can have some soda. Of course you can, Emma. Camilla says, quick, let's all say nice things about her so she flushes when she gets back. Fox in Foz. Fox interacting with her community is very kind of her to do. Not a lot of creators will do that, and I appreciate it. Aww. Lost says, did Rain World. I've made a slug cat. Congratulations. Camilla says she very nice and is a good writer. I do the best I can. Thank you. Lost says we appreciate Fox Nico doing what she does in these streams, walking us through the process. Emma says, and also very nice and smart and pretty and good at writing and talking and Thank you so much, Emma. Camilla says, I have a lot of fox friends, so I don't know about that, but she is definitely one of the cutest. I enjoy these streams. Thank you, Camilla. She has a great singing voice. Thank you. Lost says, I didn't have a lot of fox friends, but I know a lot of cats and she's the best of those. And our competition is mostly living dolls, so it's steep. $1 says $20, that's... yeah, it's just enough for me. It is a lot, thank you. Ray says Fox is super sweet and super skilled. Thank you, Ray. Camilla says she is a very nice person. I simply do the best I can. Ray says every time I see Fox gifs, I imagine it's her VTuber model doing the yelling noises. Kitty's quite the accurate descriptor after all. Thank you, Ray. Camilla says she is definitely the foxiest fox I know. Ray says, always fun to get insight on her creative process, whether it be her writing or her art. She has a relaxing presence, says Camilla. Emma! 20's already so much, thank you. Camilla says, I'm a cat girl, pay attention to me. Ray says, who's that gal? It's Nico! Ray says, oh, I forgot to mention I got croissants and Oreos. Very nice. Camilla says, the best snack food. Wandale says, she got some amazing eyes. Reminds me of Agnes Tachyon, I'm pretty sure. Butcher her name. Huggles. Lost says, Cheshire. Ray says, lots of cats and no bunnies. Shaking my head. Aww. Emma says, there you go, $30 today. I can't do 50 though, alas. Gotta be smart about my monies. Trying to save up so I can go visit, someone. I see, Emma. I wish you good fortune with that. Ray says, especially in Esta... Namia? Corvus says, seconded. Camilla says, angry third place cat girl noises. Camilla says, can I have a head pat? Of course you can. Of course you can, dear. Pet pat. Ray says, actually, never mind, I got a... I see. Emma says, oh, leaving? Camilla says, Faye, I need everyone. It's how I recharge my cat girl magic. Cat girl magic is very fickle. Corvus says, I like this song. I don't know it, but I like it nonetheless. Ray says, girl, I haven't been here that long. I wasn't sure. Thank you so very much, Emma. Lost says, I don't need to do that for magic, although I guess I'm not really a cat now, am I? But thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vermilion. Hi, Wolf. Ray says, I've been told I have more dog energy than cat, though I don't know if I'm more golden retriever or chihuahua. Anyways, with your permission? Well, we are already in the middle of it anyways, and we're getting on towards the ending of it, so we're just gonna do it. Kill the music, turn the desktop audio back on, and we're gonna finish Abandoned by Disney.
I had seen some stairs near the palace's lobby and decided to go have a seat there until I felt better. The staircase was far enough away from the front of the building to be relatively clean, save for a startling accumulation of dust. I pulled a wedge of metal off the wall, once again painted with the Abandoned by Disney motto I'd become accustomed to, and I placed the wedge on the stairs and sat on it to keep at least somewhat clean. The stairway led downward, below ground level. Using my camera flash as a sort of improvised flashlight, I could see that the staircase ended in a metal mesh door with a padlock. A sign on the door, a real sign, read, "Mascots only. Thank you." This perked up my spirits a little bit, for 2 reasons. One, a mascots only area would definitely have some interesting stuff back in the day. 2, the padlock was still in place. Nobody had gone down there, not the vandals, not the looters, nobody. This was the one place I could actually explore and perhaps find something interesting to photograph or wantonly steal. I had come to the palace essentially agreeing with myself that it was okay to take anything I wanted because, hey, abandoned.
Honest to goodness, nearly 16 minutes in, by the by. The fact that the narrator is also just a willing little sneak thief is just, I think, just a hair endearing, if chaotic neutral of them. Emma says got a budget for like clothing and sunscreen and stuff. Races, let's get this show on the road. Emma says percent planning on visiting lives somewhere hot. Will says, oh boy, here we go. Camilla says, I've been told I have orange cat energy. Chaos.
It didn't take much to bust the lock. Oh, actually, that's wrong. It didn't take much to bust the metal plate on the wall that the padlock was hooked to. Time and decay had done most of the work for me, and I was able to bend the metal plate enough to pull the screws out of the wall. Something nobody else had apparently thought of, or hadn't been able to do at the time. The mascots only area was a startling and very welcomed change from the rest of the building I'd seen. For one, every second or third fluorescent light overhead was illuminated, even though they flickered and faded randomly. Also, nothing had been stolen or broken, even if age and exposure were definitely taking their toll. Tables had notepads and pens. There were clocks, even a punch-in clock on the wall complete with filled-out time cards. Chairs were scattered around, and there was even a small break room with an old, static-filled television and long rotted-out food and drink on the counters. It was like one of those post-apocalypse movies where everything is left in the state of evacuation.
Which, 17 minutes in, oh my goodness gracious. Imagine living in a place like that. That is like post-evacuation status. Like, yeah, there's overturned things, there's things in the state of chaos, there's streets that are filled up with abandoned cars and whatnot, and everything's just dead quiet in the city, except for the sounds of howling wind. Yeah, that would just be, like, very eerie, wouldn't it? I see that we're all going in on quoting Kane. Lost says, in my eyes, we must move somewhere warmer. Example, hell. Camilla says, I wouldn't. Camilla says, mostly because I don't want anything tied to me. Corva says, it's news to me that it's news to you. To which degree, who answers to who? We could go on and on, but in the end, who are we kidding? My divinity is past infinity, am I getting through? Ray says that, OMG, have you seen the Digital Circus episode 8 song, but every repeated word with respect to its first use is gold? I need to see it at some point, yes. Camilla says the real question is you take something from the Abandoned Club 27 room. Ray says it's 30 minutes and 27 seconds. Oh my gosh. Lost says, seems our regime has plummeted south. Ray says, I challenge my friends to watch the whole thing and I'd buy them boba or do a tier list of their choosing. That's evil. Alright, I'm gonna continue on. We've got a few more minutes to go through.
As I walked the maze-like sub-basement hallways of the mascots-only area, the sights just became more and more interesting. As I went further, desks and tables were knocked over, papers scattered and almost melded with the damp floor, and a large carpet of mold was slowly overtaking the real rotting crimson floor covering. Everything was just sort of squishy. Anything wood disintegrated into mush when I applied even the least amount of force, and clothing items hanging on hooks in one of the rooms simply fell to moist threads if I even tried to unhook them. One thing that annoyed me was that the light was becoming more sparse and unreliable as I went further into the dank, suffocating depths of the place. Eventually, I reached a black and yellow striped door with the words Character Prep 1 stenciled on it. The door wouldn't open at first. I figured this was probably where the costumes were kept, and I definitely wanted a photograph of that twisted, stinking mess. Try as I might, whatever angle or trick I tried, the door wouldn't budge. That is, until I gave up and started to walk away. That was when there was a slight popping sound and the door creaked open slowly.
And it's at this point in the narration that I would take a look at the context clues around me, and I would think, this might be far enough for me. This might be a bit far for me. So I'm not going into that dark room. I have explored enough. I am turning around, and I am leaving. Ray says inspired by challenging them to listen to the entire thing of the most unwanted song for boba, or to buy whatever game they recommended. What you doing?
Cat videos.
Okay, still streaming by the way, so I just wanted to let you know. All good.
Friends are still here? They can still hear me.
It's more just a precaution. Ray says I am brave, but not that brave. Corvus says, yeah, I'm out at that point. Dial says, you should listen to the theme of a huntic. Trust me, it goes unreasonably hard. Corvus says, noping right out of there as soon as though I'd grown wings. Blackwell says, a door that opens by itself to a dark room? Ha ha! No thank you. Camilla says, I'm too curious for my own good, so I'll probably enter the door anyway. I have to know. I have to. It's the only way I'll ever be satisfied. Lost says, going on after that isn't brave. It's dumb as shit. Only those brave as heart or dumb as shit will enter into that sort of room. Into a dark room that opens by itself.
Inside, the room was completely dark, pitch black. I used the camera flash to look for a light switch in the wall by the door, but there was nothing. As I made my search, I was jarred out of my sense of excitement by a loud electrical buzz. Rows of lights overhead suddenly flashed to life, flickering and fading in and out like the rest I had passed. It took a second for my eyes to adjust, and it seemed like the light was going to just keep getting brighter until all the bulbs exploded. But just when I thought it would reach that critical stage, the lights dimmed a bit and steadied. The room was exactly as I'd pictured it. Various Disney costumes hung on the walls, fully put together like strange cartoon cadavers hung from invisible nooses. There was an entire rack of loincloths and native clothes on hangers toward the back. What I found odd, and what I wanted to photograph right away...
Yeah, this is where I would have turned around
was a
and
Mickey Mouse
left.
costume at the center of the room. Unlike the other costumes, it was lying on its back in the center of the floor like a murder victim. The fur on the costume was rotten and shedding, creating bare patches. What was even odder, however, was the coloring of the costume. It was like a photo negative of the actual Mickey Mouse. Black where he should be white, and white where he should be black. His normally red overalls were light blue. The sight was off-putting enough that I actually put off photographing the thing until last. I took a picture of the costumes hanging on the walls. Upward angles, downward angles, side shots to show an entire row of frozen, putrid cartoon faces, some with plastic eyes missing. Then I decided to stage a shot, just one of the bedraggled character heads on the slick, grimy floor. I reached for the headpiece of a Donald Duck costume and carefully removed it so the thing wouldn't fall apart in my hands. And as I looked into the face of the wide-eyed, moldering head, a loud clattering sound made me jump with fright. I looked down at my feet, and there, between my shoes, was a human skull. It had fallen out of the mascot's head and shattered into pieces at my feet. Only the empty face and lower jaw remained, staring up at me. I dropped the duck head immediately, as you'd expect, and moved for the door. As I stood in the doorway, I looked back to the skull on the floor. I had to take a picture of it, you know? I had to, for any number of reasons that may seem silly, but only if you don't think it through. I'd need proof of what happened, especially if Disney was going to somehow make this go away. I had no doubt in my mind, right from the start, that even if it was just gross negligence, Disney was responsible for this. That's when Mickey, that photo negative, opposite Mickey in the middle of the floor, started to get up. First sitting up, then climbing to its feet. The Mickey Mouse costume, or whoever was inside of it, stood there at the center of the room, its fake face just staring directly at me as I mumbled, "No, no, 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 no," over and over and over, with shaking hands, a violently thrashing heart, and legs that had once again turned to jelly. I managed to lift the camera and aim it at the opposite creature, now quietly sizing me up. The digital camera's screen displayed only dead pixels in the shape of the thing. It was a perfect silhouette of the Mickey costume. As the camera moved in my unsteady hands, the dead pixels spread, marring the screen wherever Mickey's outline moved to. Then the camera died, went blank and quiet and broken. I raised my eyes once again to the Mickey Mouse costume. "Hey," it said, in a hushed, perverted, but perfectly executed Mickey Mouse voice. "Wanna see my head come off?" It started to pull at its own head, working its clumsy, glove-clad fingers around its neck was clawing, impatient movements similar to a wounded man trying to pull himself free of a predator's jaws, as it worked its digits into its neck. So much blood, so much thick, chunky, yellow blood. I turned away as I heard a sickening tearing of cloth and flesh, only cared about getting away. Above the doorway out of this room, I saw the final message clawed into the metal with bone or fingernails. Abandoned by God. I never got the pictures out of the camera. I never wrote the blog entry about it. After I ran from that place, fled for my sanity, if not my very life, I knew why Disney didn't want anyone to know about this place. They didn't want anyone like me getting in. They didn't want anything like that getting out.
Yeah. That one I just went all in on, like, reading it as if I was witnessing it again for the first time. I wanted to make the narrator sound traumatized by that. There are hints of it, like, here and there, where I tried to make it seem like the narrator is going through this, relatively calmly. At the very beginning of it, there is, like, this little bit of a waver that I tried to add in because it's like, yeah, they decided they're going to be telling this story and they're reliving it. Indeed, Hannah. Yep, Camilla. Wolf says, so fire or holy water? Your decision. Hannah says, actually, no, I've seen plenty of ads come off. I don't need to see any more. Welcome back, Maya. Thank you so much, Hannah. Vermilion says, Gods, no. Ray says, bad, bad, bad. Vermilion says, that's so terrifying. Camilla says, meh. Ray says, great story, but no mental damage. Hannah says, like, genuinely, I do actually run that and the sequel from you as a 1-2 to punch to fall asleep to, and then more from other narrators to keep the playlist going while I sleep. Camilla says, I've seen worse than my nightmares. Okay, so we're approaching the stream's 2-hour, 30-minute mark. We could, if we really wanted to, watch the sequel, Room Zero. It doesn't really do the same things that Abandoned by Disney does. I still think that it is incredibly creepy, though. Camilla said I was the kid who was more disappointed that the boogeyman wasn't real than Santa. Ray says, yes, Room Zero. Is this a consensus? Let's see hearts in the chat if you want to hear the Room Zero reading that I did ages ago. Hannah says it's more reliable to knock me out than actual general anesthesia. Wolf says there's a sequel? Yep, Slime Beast wrote an entire series about this. I was actually planning on doing suggestions and, corrupt us afterwards. I just never got around to it. Alright, so that's Emma, and that's Ray. Do you have any other hearts that we can, see? Corvus says, I'd like to do that because I might appreciate it more a second time. Camilla says, Fox is busy. Ray says, that one was haunting. Oh, Corvus going in for a realistic heart on this one. Vermilion doing a sparkly heart. Maya says, can't figure out how to send a heart. Lost in Wonderland's got a dark heart. Hannah says, anyways, on a brighter note than that story, guess who's got her second speech pathologist appointment tomorrow for gender voice affirmation is being paid for by the state. Congratulations, Hannah. Oh, Wolf? The heart is for basically signaling if you want me to do a listen along of Room Zero and also do like a sort of commentary on my creative process for that one. Can we do all the hearts? Sure, go right ahead. White and orange. Like a certain uniform. Alrighty then. Room Zero is where I really did like a lot of sound design to try to make it like as creepy as possible. So I'm gonna click that on, volume up the desktop audio just a slight bit, and let's let the creepiness begin.
It's been a while since I've written anything related to the Disney Corporation, and I'm sure you can understand why. A lot has been going on since my last post. I've received a lot of questions and concerns from folks who've read my first-hand account of Mowgli's Palace, a resort that was built and abandoned by Disney. I want to thank everyone who's mirrored my post. It's been taken down from a few places, mostly corporate sites that were easily leaned on by a larger power. However, for every new topic or disappearing blog post, it seems like 100 more have popped up. This is something they'll have to face. There's no turning back for them. None for me either.
Almost a minute in, and I'm going to tell you my thought process for how I wanted to start reading Room Zero. This is after the original, like, telling of, abandoned by Disney. After all of those events have happened, and after they relived those events in the telling of it. Now, they are dealing with the psychological toll of what they're experiencing. It is a person who isn't as confident as they once were. They're experiencing a level of paranoia and stress over a prolonged period of time. And that stress is already making them buckle through. They gain some self-assurance in telling their story because it's like something that they have some form of control over. And they also, are like me in that they like telling stories. That they like the fact that they can grasp onto these facts and be able to tell you about them. Even if the retelling of them makes their life worse in the end.
I'm definitely being followed. For the first month or two, I chalked it up to paranoia. Any casual glance or half smile in my direction set me off. Hair standing on the back of my neck and everything. The first one I was actually able to spot, was a telephone worker milling around my apartment complex. He was a middle-aged, doughy, just as you would expect. But something just seemed off about him. I couldn't place it, but I knew this wasn't just my imagination acting up. He was awkward and out of place, not somebody who was comfortable doing his routine job. I followed him around a corner, only to lose him there. When I turned back to go home, there he was, staring directly at me about 10 feet behind me, expressionless and cold. "Exploring?" he asked. That was all he said, and there was an accusing tone to his voice. Tell me, what blue-collar phone jockey does that? I guess that's the worst part. Never feeling safe. Never feeling alone. That, and the occasional Disney merchandise left somewhere for me to find. Little rubber Mickeys in the mailbox, a Disney Adventures magazine on my bookshelf. They hide little Mickeys everywhere. 3 circles, 1 big, 2 small, in the silhouette of the famous mouse's head. I started keeping a running list of Mickeys I found. Coffee cup rings on my coffee table. 1 big, 2 small. Colored glass bottles left on the doorstep, viewed from the top down, all red. Graffiti on the wall on my way to work. A huge earth, small sun and moon in the proper locations. They're everywhere.
Yeah. In that, I wanted to really properly convey the sense of terror, of paranoia that the narrator's going through. They're everywhere. That line conveys just so much to me about what they're going through. Which, I mean, if you know more about the series, it might have ended up harming them a lot more. Hannah says, honestly, your run of Room Zero especially blends right in with my playlist full of stuff from the narrators who had been doing creepypasta narration for over a decade and a half now. Yeah, Room Zero definitely should read different than Abandoned by Disney, because of what you're saying about the writer/narrator point of view, and because they're retelling stories that happened to others. Camilla says, welcome to my world. It's a horrible place filled with fear and anguish. I'm sorry, Camilla. Ray says, honestly, yeah, I'd be paranoid and stressed too. Trauma like that doesn't feel real, and you gotta have something to remind yourself that you're not losing your mind. Hannah says, which is arguably the most realistic part of the stories. Maya says, God damn it, fire alarm, I just finished my last exam and thought I could relax. Like, oh.
People have emailed me about this as well. If you repost anything I have to say, you're gonna start finding those son of a bitch outlines. I guarantee it. The best one by far, one that actually made me laugh because of the horror of it all, was a drawing in chalk next to my car. I was taken aback at first, walking through the parking garage, keeping an eye out for people following me. The outline seemed a perfect match for, well, a murder victim. You're probably familiar with it if you've read my past posts. Written in yellow, paint, I'm sure, was a single word. Retract. The only good thing that has come out of all of this is that I know I'm not the only one who's seen something they shouldn't have. I'm not gonna give you their names, because, well, if I have to tell you why, you haven't been paying attention. Researcher goes to Disney parks whenever he can, all throughout the year. He's not going to have fun, enjoy the rides, etc. He's looking for the gas gods. There's been a...
Oh yeah, just like a side note before I continue on. I absolutely love the Gascots. I love their inclusion so very much. Because it taps into something in my head. I don't quite know what it is. It's probably something akin to the Uncanny Valley. But it's that idea that they're just there somewhere. And they appear to some people either at a distance or in like words that they hear someone say, or they are just like in full view of someone else. And they're just there. They don't really cause harm. They're just kind of like an Easter egg in real life. A horrifying Easter egg. Yes, Rayberries. They're just standing there menacingly. Hannah says it also taps into actual products Disney made in World War II era. Maya says it's 40 degrees. I gotta stay outside for an hour now. At least I have the warmth of listening to horror. Hannah says, but I also wouldn't put it past Disney to actually harass someone into silence like this, assuming they don't do that already. Yeah, and like there's also some sense of the Mickeys popping up everywhere, more being confirmation of bias is seeing a trio of overlapped circles. Very nice, Carilla.
A long tradition, apparently, of people reporting strange patrons throughout the park. Silent, motionless, staring patrons of every age, shape, and size. Men and women, adults, children, and teens. All wearing Disney-themed gas masks. Way back when, Disney would get tons of complaints about oddly dressed folks following others around the park. Folks who would then merge into crowds and disappear. Later on, the gas masks caused folks to draw other conclusions, and reports of possible terrorists and bombers started flowing. All of those reports most likely went straight into the trash can. I know I can't find any sign of any such occasions reported on by the media, although you should be aware of the fact Disney can pretty much control its press like no other. Researcher goes to the parks, talks to a few people, and tries not to draw any attention to himself. He'll just ask 3 or 4 families if they've seen his friend who's wearing a funny mask. He has yet to see a gascot for himself, though on one occasion, a child pointed him toward Frontier Town. As he raced through the crowd, he heard a single voice ahead cry out, "Mommy, I want a goofier mask too." A fellow I'll call Lifeguard worked in a Disney water park from 2001 through 2003. He stood at the top of a huge water slide and made sure none of the kids got too rowdy. He passed the kids through, one at a time, telling them over and over again to be safe, keep their arms in, and so on.
Yeah. This is definitely one of those things that I altered. Because I just don't like how Slime Beast worded this. I hate how they worded this. I absolutely do. I will criticize it every single time. Because it has something to do with a larger than average kid getting stuck in a water slide. And I just didn't really appreciate the language surrounding it. It felt a little bit too disrespectful to the poor kid. And so I altered it. I made it a little bit more compassionate in a way. It doesn't remove all of the instances of that sort of rudeness, but it at least tamps them down. It's one of the reasons why I didn't really continue on with a lot of them after this point, and generally speaking why I avoid reading creepypastas in general. It's because I don't like that sort of language. Just got a fucking Disney solitaire hat. I'm sorry, Lost. Melissa, have you considered reading the Disney Mirror Ritual? I've never heard of it before. Ray says, yeah, I hate it when wider characters are treated as punchlines. Precisely. Precisely. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Mostly because everyone I've ever met has been, like, with very few exceptions, been extremely lovely to me. In a lot of ways, their bodies don't really factor into it. It's more so the personality that shines through. Are they a good person? Do they make me feel happy and safe? Are they capable of empathy, of love and compassion? That is what I'm attracted to the most. The ability to be compassionate to one another. And not to be like... what's the word I'm looking for? Hateful of things that they don't understand. Ray says some of the humor and language in them is, yeah, products of their time, alright. I do the best I can, Vermilion. Hannah says at Camilla, I mean, I was listening to them on a daily basis all through high school. Would have been full-blown goth creepy if my mom wasn't so controlling over my wardrobe growing up. I'm sorry, Hannah. Wandal says, have you heard of Paul's Death from Torment? I have not. Ray says, I'm chubby with curves, and it's still a struggle to be comfortable sometimes, but we all proceed in spite. This is coming from a gal who is 6 foot and is thin as a goddamn drake. I wish that I had a little bit more pudge. I wish I did. Because I've been trying to gain weight, but it's been hard. Seriously. The very first time that I was, like, at the DMV-ish, before I was, like, there, I weighed myself, I was around, like, 150 pounds. And it's only been, like, after I left Cali that I gained weight to around 170-odd pounds. Now I flicker back and forth between 170 and 180, respectively. That's with boots. Hannah says, I have forever been built like a damn toothpick. Vermilion says, same, I'm 5'2" and 109. Hannah says, I'm like, there's no amount of calories that I can consume and then also put on weight to get over 120 at the heaviest. Probably at best 110. Yeah, it doesn't help that I have an eating issue, apparently. It's been something that has been like a very, very hard thing to face. A lot of the times, I simply just won't feed myself. Not due to the fact that I'm not hungry. I can feel the effects of hunger, whether it be dizziness or drowsiness or shaking or, you know, just feeling empty in my stomach until I feel literally sick. I tend to be really, really picky with the things that I can eat. And if I'm, like, looking around for something and something doesn't immediately, like, leap out to me as being safe, I won't cook it. I just go without. My own fault, honestly. It's just... It's like safe foods, right? Foods that you like, that taste good, that have the right consistency. Ray says I'm like 170 pounds, to be honest. Winter says me at 5'5" and 150 pounds. Corva says, yeah, I'm the same. Forcing yourself to eat can be hard. Ray says, yeah, I used to do the same thing. Camilla says, I drink more than I eat. Ray says, it's tough out there. Camilla says, that helps. Ray says, safe, sensory, pleasing foods that don't make you sick. Precisely. I've gotten into eating, like, oranges again. I hadn't eaten oranges consistently for a long time simply because, well, I had a bad experience with one. I tried to peel into it only to discover that it was rotten. Yeah, that wasn't a fun day. Haha. So I'm getting back into eating them. Oranges can be really, really sweet. Oh yeah, I also had a similar experience with, like, eggs one time. That was, like, over a decade ago. But I tried to crack into an egg at one point, and suffice to say, it was bad. Yeah, there's a reason why sometimes in my fiction I write trauma as looking and smelling like rot. Because I have trauma of rot. Rot, it sets off an extreme disgust reaction, a self-preservation instinct. That makes me want to leap back away from the rotting thing. No matter what it is. It makes touching it, handling it, trying to get rid of it really hard for me. Emma says, I mostly forget to eat, yet I somehow weigh as much as 2 if any of y'all combined, arg. Emma huggles. Hannah says, even with culinary school broadening my palate, there's some foods, drinks where I cannot handle the sensory of the taste or texture. Oh yeah, I feel that. Camilla says, you cracked into your own egg, but that was good. It was really freeing. Yeah. Ray says, I end up feeling like that food definitely looks pleasing and lovely objectively, but I just know it would be sensory allergy nightmare for me. Lost says, is that why you describe the shrinking drink as tasting like rot? The shrinking drink. Are we talking about, like, that one time I was talking about the character lore behind my VTuber model? Ray says, 5'2" and 170 pounds. I am short and stocky. And very cute. Don't forget. Anyways, I'm going to continue on with Room Zero. I completely forgot.
One day, as he tells it, this fat kid goes down the tube and doesn't come out the other end. He sent 2 or 3 kids after. The whole thing moves at a steady clip, so naturally you'd expect that if he got stuck, the kids that followed him were stuck too. Not so. Only the big kid disappears. Everyone else comes out the other end, cheering and splashing like nothing's wrong. Lifeguard shuts down the slide, much to the aggravation of the kids waiting. Before he can go through any of Disney's strict procedures, splash, he finally comes out. Staff members pulled the kid out of the water. He sank like a stone when he hit, his skin already blue and his eyes wide. All he would say was, no face kids, and stop squeezing. The kid was okay, in case you're wondering. He got carted right off to the medical center. When Lifeguard was told to open the slide back up, he made a big stink about how it clearly wasn't safe. Despite his complaints, he was threatened with firing and begrudgingly opened the slide again. From that point on, he kept a closer eye on the kids. Every so often, they'd come out in the wrong order, never as stunned as the first one, but always with a vague look of concern, a dreamy half-stupor that seemed as if they were trying to figure out what was reality.
What those kids most likely were going through was a form of dissociation, trying to figure out what reality is and whatnot. It can be a common sign of dissociation. Speaking as I have experienced it a lot. When I was living in Cali, I dissociated a lot in order to spare myself some experiences, to the point where a lot of my memories of Cali are fragmented at best. But I do remember the trauma. I have processed a lot of it. I was able to rationalize some of it, and some of it I accepted what had happened to me. But yeah, there were times when I was living in Cali where I would just let my eyes go unfocused, and it was kind of like I was staring behind my blood mother rather than looking at her. I was just staring right behind her. And it was like her voice drifted away, like the room was suddenly empty. Her presence suddenly didn't affect me quite as harshly, and I didn't respond as frequently to some of the things that she said. Quite literally, I started to retreat into an internal world of safety, to retreat from trauma and to retreat from her. I felt such a need to get away. My brain was trying to save me any way it could. And it succeeded. To later detriments, but I'm working through it. So yeah, it was hellish then, so what these kids were going through in this story was probably a similar dissociative state.
They'd take on some water and choke up a bit, and they'd never come back up to ride again. I read his emails with the same sort of unease you might be feeling right now. I wanted him to share his own story, but in the end he didn't want to expose himself in that way. I can't say I blame him. Snow White, which wasn't the actual role she played, was a character in the park. She had a nice little tidbit for me. You know what happens when a costumed employee drops dead in his suit? Like, 1 second he's taking a picture with little Jimmy, and the next he's had a fatal stroke? A second costumed mascot in the area has to sit with the corpse on a curb or bench and wait for a designated dry cleaner to arrive and cart the body away in a discreet manner. All the while, patrons have no idea they're sitting with a dead body for photo ops. Feel free to check your photo albums at this point. And that was bad, but another fellow, Janitor, went completely off the creepy charts. Disney World, and probably others, is built with a series of underground tunnels just below your feet. 3 stories worth. Anything and everything you can imagine is down there for use of the employees. They're called utilidors, utility corridors. Basically, that's the reason you don't see characters out of place or janitors wandering through the park. They pop in and out of hidden doors and travel a concealed town you're walking on. Janitor told me something that might be common knowledge, but was nonetheless news to me. Walt Disney had several apartments built into his parks. There's one above Cinderella's castle. There's one in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. They're all over the place. More than that, there are nightclubs, a movie theater, a bowling alley, and much more, all behind doors built right into the whimsical facades you passed by without a second look.
There's something also about that idea of something hiding behind a whimsical facade. It's almost like Disney itself is kind of like a cosmic horror entity. That behind its child-friendly gaze is an entity of overwhelming power and stature. One that does not care about you and will hurt you if you disrespect it. Ray says it's a long road ahead. It is.
Hannah says, yeah, I've spent months on end in a dissociative state more often than not. I've experienced something similar, yes. Camilla says, like my memories of my hometown, but I think my epilepsy is mostly to blame for that. Vermilion says, so sorry you had to go through that, hun. Thank you for the hugs. Ray says, I have to say, I used to do the same with my mom, though mine is a little different than yours. Reconnecting with reality is hard when it's been a source of pain and stress. Hannah said, on the bright side, I've been making some progress on fully processing that my mom was in fact awful to me through no fault of my own after a bipolar diagnosis. Provisional at the moment, but likely will stick. Ray says, but it gets easier. Hannah says, so less dissociative episodes. Ray says, mine was more paracosm, a whole world and people inside, and their own universe to give all the love and understanding that wasn't present in reality. A lot of my own internal thoughts started becoming third person, and I started developing other identities in order to cope with some of the abuse. In a lot of ways, narrating what I was feeling helped me process the emotions. Like I was becoming a character in my own story. Not the main character, just a character that things happened to. A character that saw the world from her perspective, but it was the world that was the main character, not the girl herself. Camilla said, did you end up crafting a pseudo-personality? I did, not fun. For me, it's like wearing a mask. Different masks to deal with different situations. Sometimes those masks would be slipped on willingly, and other times when I retreat, they appear on my face regardless. They help process by allowing me to don a certain affect, a certain manner of speaking, in order to process damage, or to understand a strong feeling in a way that isn't stress. Ray says, but yeah, it's kind of why horror stories can be just as depressing as they are scary. For me, I take a lot of comfort in horror stories. Stories that are meant to be scary or sometimes disturbing end up not doing that, but making me feel more at home. Sometimes I feel more at ease after I've jumped out of my skin at something and had a giggle. Because I get to control when I see the horrifying elements. I can put the game down. I can close the book. I can choose to pick it up again at a later time. I'm not forced to live it. Hey, Brenwyn. It's been a long time. How have you been? Accurate description of Disney, indeed. Wolf says Mickey the Cosmic Horror Mouse. Camilla at Vermilion. I don't know if you're talking to me, but yeah, my dad and mom did a lot to me. I ended up hearing a second voice in my head telling me advice and thinking in second person. Ray says, yeah, friends of mine have done that as well. For me, it was more the characters I loved and created felt like the only people I could trust or confide in, creating your own safety inside your mind. The line between doing it consciously and unconsciously can blur when it comes to masking. I can understand a lot of those feelings, not exactly, but I used to avoid them because they made me more sad than scared in a way. But returning to it years later, it feels different. I don't know how to describe. Emma said that was really well said. See, I'm fireflies. That's just capitalism. Ray says, maybe I'm rambling. I love to hear your stories. I'm glad to know that there are other people out there who have gone through similar. Our stories are not one-to-one identical. They don't need to be. I'm sorry that you went through such horrible things.
I am so terribly sorry. But hey, we're here. And no matter what, I've got your back as well. Thank you for having mine. Emma says horror is comfy though. Yes, for exactly that reason. Camilla says no story is identical. Vermilion says, so that's what I've been experiencing all this time. I've been disassociating and masking? It depends. Do you sometimes feel like the person in front of you isn't really there, isn't really real, and that you can almost pretend that the room is empty? Even as they're, like, speaking to you? Or sometimes you can imagine, like, there's another person there who's helping you through stuff, and they are almost as real as you are? Corvus says, my favorite horror is when I feel like I'm forced to interface with the fraying edges of something, inspecting something and experiencing something. I don't know. Ray says, it is what it is. We carry on, no matter what. Brown One says, hi, I'm doing well. I also live with DID, dissociative identity disorder. For me, I have friends that live in my head and help me through difficult times. Yeah. We're in this together, and I'm proud of you. Always. Now let's enjoy the rest of this creepypasta, eh? I think that I'll let the commentary go for a little bit. For the next 10 minutes, let's just enjoy the story. Does that sound good?
Club 22 is one such hidden area. If you have the cash to join the exclusive club, you don't. Then you'll have access to it and much more. Club 22 is a place where anything goes. Disney Company calls these places dark zones, spots where the squeaky clean visage of Mickey Mouse gives way to drinking, drugs, and, yes, sex. Conversely, the rest of the park is the bright zone, with a few gray zone utilidors between. As far as Janitor has said, it wasn't always that way. It was more of a slow decline and the gradual relaxation of social norms within that elite group.
Oh. There's one more story that I do have to share before I let the thing play out for another 9 minutes. It is something that happened recently, and it did involve Akira, but don't worry, everything's cool between the two of us now. We've talked through the issues, and everything's good now. But it is something that did happen that did spark a little bit of a trauma response. We were at, like, this one gathering. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is for privacy's sake. It was something that I was, like, once a part of, like a gamer group, but one that I had, like, dropped out of. I only really come to socialize and to interact with, like, you know, people in my own context without, like, getting too into it. Well, Akira thought, in her infinite wisdom, that something to prove that the others wanted me back would be to have them surround me and looking at me with puppy dog eyes. Very cute, right? I dare say that it's a fairly adorable thing to imagine. It was absolutely fucking terrifying to me. It scared the living daylights out of me. The feeling of becoming a prey creature in less than a second. I went from feeling a sense of giggliness to a sense of, like, some form of giddiness. The next thing I knew, there was, like, a spark of fear that set alight my soul like wildfire. It wasn't fun anymore. It wasn't, like, fun. It just went from being, like, a little bit amusing and fun and went to absolutely terrifying in less than a second. I was wearing my witch's hat, the one with a fairly wide brim. The next thing I remember was clutching my head and looking at the floor. Things get a little bit hazy for me there because I started dissociating really, really hard. There were several others in my head that were clamoring for the steering wheel, so to speak. Several wanted me to get up and bolt from the place as quickly as possible when I finally got free. I reined in all of that and took only steps that I knew that I could be steady on. I felt really timid again. The timidity that I only really felt during the worst of my blood mother's outrages, where I wasn't sure which steps were safe to take. And above all, I just wanted to run. Run and never go back. Once I and Akira were in the car, and I was slowly starting to get calmer, another personality stepped up to plate. As I understand, they gave Akira a big dressing down, and it was pretty much as you expect. You thought treating me as a prey creature was a good idea. And again, we already went through this, we hashed it out, and she agreed that it was a poor move. It was a very, very poor move. And yeah, I adore the people there. I adore that they want me back. Please never do that again. Please, that was incredibly scary. It's also one of the reasons why I don't like people standing right behind me. People standing behind me sets off this thing. I'm expecting a hand around my throat any second. Or, you know, someone grabbing like a fistful of my hair or something. Stars, that's horrible. I was mostly fine the next morning, but I think we were legitimately pissed at Akira for a while about that. Like I said, though, everything's cool again. I only tell the story because it's a moment where dissociation was, like, triggered out, like, for the first time, that badly in a long time. It doesn't really happen like this anymore. It only happened, like, one other time and not to as, like, wild an extent. Even though it did cause me to start running. Lost says, to be fully honest, I feel guilty when I have very slight things like this because I don't really have trauma, just masking and pretending things are fine. Sorry. No need to apologize. Everyone experiences things differently. I'm sorry about masking. Hey, Frog. Ray says, it's more like imaginary friends. They aren't me and I'm not them, but they live in my head all the same. I'm never alone because they're always there. I talk to them sometimes and forget they're not technically here. Oh, shoot? Oh god, that would set my scopophobia so bad. Like, the intent was definitely sweet, but that would be scary. Camilla says, sounds tough. I don't like being around people too much. People, too much, problems, too much, just too much. Ray says, hey, you live and you learn. Thanks for the hugs, Vermilion. Ray says, walking on eggshells or broken glass in the sand. Oh yeah, Frog, it was. Camilla says, Jatheris is calm. I guess I'm lucky for that. He would never just take control from me. Ray says, oh god, wait, yeah, I know that feeling too well. I'm sorry, Fox, that's awful. Camilla says, it's why when I'm behind someone, I always say, excuse, sorry, right behind you. Ray says, I'm glad you both are alright. Emma, thank you so much for the hugs. It was, Brown One. Like I said, we're okay now. We were able to talk it through. Now, my blood mother would inflict this kind of trauma upon me, either due to her action or her inaction, and I was expected to get over it. I was not able to talk to her about any of these issues. Any attempt that I did so resulted in it being my fault, and so I just had to learn to deal with it. which I dealt with by withdrawing to my room and not really interacting with the household in general. So yeah, I'm really, really glad that me and Akira can talk about this freely. That we can resolve these sorts of issues by having a calm discussion about it. Where I can be angry in a safe environment and let that anger cool off and explain in my own terms why I'm angry. Why the fuck up was a fuck up. So yeah. I'm doing a lot better. Truly. And it's just a testament to how sweet and understanding Akira really is. Because she listened. She actually took my feelings into account. And I treasure that. I appreciate her. I love her. Ray says, shaking your hand in mother trauma, reconnecting with your emotions and feeling safe enough to let yourself feel them and be honest about them is huge. Vermilion says, I have this fear that I have DID. For some reason it scares me that I might not be me and that I'm one of many in what I perceive as my body. Sorry. It's quite alright, my dear. It's quite alright. Everything's gonna be okay, no matter what. And hey, you'll have me standing by you. Never forget. Brenwan says, being able to talk things out and have one party accept blame and actively do better is a blessing. It truly, truly is. You don't recognize it until you actually get it. Until you realize that you'd been deprived of it. Before I got free of Callie, anger was something that I had a really hard time dealing with. Because I learned from my blood mother that the way to handle anger is to bottle it up, to not express it. Because expressing it wasn't healthy. I think that she was trying to teach me to reason through it all, to try to figure out if you had a justification to be angry, but the lesson came out warped. Ray says you don't realize you're starved until you're properly fed and cared for. Yes. Yes. Lost says I'll keep all my emotions right here, then one day I'll die. Ray says to be easy to live with. As Riku from Final Fantasy X said, I keep my emotions. I keep my memories inside. Memories are nice, but that's all they are. Anyways, I have talked a lot. This went on for a lot longer than I was expecting it to. Now for the next 9 minutes or so, let's enjoy the rest of this creepypasta.
The reason he knows about all this, you may have already guessed. He's cleaned it. After a lengthy background check and a non-disclosure form, Janitor moved up from a park attendant to one of the Dark Zone cleaning crews. Now, before you get some satanic human sacrifice vision in your head, Janitor saw nothing of the sort. Lots of empty alcohol bottles, yes. Used condoms, scattered like deflated New Year's balloons, oh yeah. He cleaned up his share of blood, piss, and vomit, but it was all down to the unrestricted behavior of patrons as opposed to any sort of cult behavior. At least, that's how he sees it in retrospect. All that trash, that profane shit, went into a furnace and mingled with the smoke of a quaint cottage's chimney. If you've been to Disney World, you've breathed ultra-condensed sin. Backing up this information was Hammer. Hammer mailed me the old-fashioned way, though I don't know how he got my home address. He sent me photocopies of work papers proving his employment with the instruction to burn them when I was convinced, which I did gladly. Hammer worked around the Disney World Park, doing demolition and construction. At one point, he approached a superior regarding some strange construction plans. There was a wide, rectangle area marked off on the blueprints, about the size of a supermarket. The area was left unnamed and only bore the words, "Do not dig." Not only was his superior in the dark, but he was super fucking purposefully in the dark. He didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to know about it, and ended the conversation with, "This space intentionally left blank." Hammer didn't get it. The area seemed like a waste of space, and it was directly conflicting with the work his team had been given. He started poking around the area on his off time, finding only a derelict steel door and a great span of concrete just beyond. It was a supermarket's worth of blank gray floor. Soon after, Hammer started picking gascots out of the crowds. Unlike all other reports, the things would stand in full view of the guy. They'd cluster together in the distance. Or they'd just be pressed against a wall when he turned a corner. He said they moved weird, like they were weak or injured, like a deer that's been run down by a hunter and can't flee anymore. The gas masks, the Disney character faces with filters jammed in, he noted that they seemed wet on the inside, like condensation on a car window. Tiny beads of water glimmered behind the glass, making it impossible for any of them to actually see. Probing further, Hammer started asking questions of anyone and everyone who had been working in the park for a decade or more. He hit dead ends throughout, until he was directed to Ida, an elderly woman who worked in a restaurant on Main Street. She'd been there since way back, and though nobody had the balls to ask directly, everyone knew she had plenty of terrible stories to tell. Hammer asked about the empty space, then about the gas mask customers, and at first he thought he would receive the same non-answers he'd gotten so far. She was quiet, eerily quiet. "Room 0, she croaked, a single shaking hand placed to her cheek as if she were a little girl fearing a father's punishment. She didn't meet the man's gaze for the entire conversation. Room 0, as it turned out, was yet another hidden room just like the apartments in Club 22. However, its sheer size and its spot deep beneath the park set it apart from any of the fun dark zones. It was a bomb shelter. Room 0 was built to withstand a massive attack, be it conducted by foreign or domestic enemies. Room 0 was to be stocked with enough rations to feed the entire park's average number of patrons at any given moment, and housed a smaller, yet lavish panic room of sorts for Disney higher-ups. During World War II, official Disney gas masks were actually produced for children to wear in the event of an attack. The idea was that it would be less scary for kids if Mickey's face was emblazoned on the wartime safety device. Yes, I know the obvious problems with that. During the Cold War scare of the 60s, when Disney World was constructed, Room 0 was stocked with similar masks as well. Whether they cared about the fears of children or just callous branding, the things found their way down there. What's more, some genius decided that kids would then be frightened by the gas masks their parents wore, and so all masks, adult and child, were made to comply to this insane standard. Ada described it as treating a wound with lemon juice. None of this explained what Hammer had been seeing, though. Not only the seemingly supernatural appearances, but the emptied-out room as well. "I've been in there," he explained. "There's nothing but a cement floor and 4 walls." "No." Ada shook her head and covered her mouth, stifling a sob. "You've been on top of it." Someone or something sounded the alarm one day, when the park was at full capacity. The warning was clear. It was supposedly an air attack. Security ushered everyone down into the tremendous shelter. There they were ordered to put on their masks and hunker down for the duration of the assault. Everything was quiet for about 30 minutes, save for the crying children and the frightened whispers. No one wanted to die, and so they were thankful in a way for this strange measure of safety. Then the first scream rang out. "Hey!" a man shouted. "Quit pinching!" Waves of shrieks and yelps rippled through the crowd, from one wall to the other, back and forth. "Who's running around? Settle down!" someone hollered. "Who's laughing? This isn't funny!" "Ow! Who stepped on my foot?" Despite security guards urging to calm down and keep their cool, the crowd became more and more agitated until finally, after nearly an hour of madness, the lights flickered, then died. What followed could only be described as utter chaos. In the dark, only the wails of the young and the anguished cries of adults could be heard in a massive, swelling din that bloodied the ears of all within that black echo chamber. A group of staff members and a select few patrons made it out the door, ready to face the war above rather than the insanity below. What they found, of course, was a desolate, yet untouched theme park. The music continued to play, echoing through silent storybook towns. Upon returning to room 0, the few who stood at the top of the steel staircase that led down into the pitch blackness heard no sign of the previous fray. There was only silence. Ida herself descended that staircase, despite the begging of those she left above. She reached the reinforced doors, herself now awash in darkness, and hearing only the buzzing in her ears. A single voice came out of the darkness. The echo made it impossible to tell whether the mocking, raspy voice was at the back of the bomb shelter, or if it was right in front of her face. "Shut the door, dear. You're letting out the cold." Gripped by terror, she did just that. Within days, the entire thing, shelter, staircase, all of it, was covered with feet upon feet of cement. Air systems and generators above its ceiling were removed, creating the large, empty space. "They're all still down there," Ada told Hammer. "Down there, with whoever that was." You might have noticed, I've used Ida's name. Unfortunately, she passed away soon after telling her story. Accidental fall, supposedly, after getting out of bed to turn on a light. Such a company devotee, the paper reported, that her entire bedroom was covered with Mickey silhouettes.
Okay, so there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about after it was finished. The first of which, of course, happens to be, what I did with the final track, because I think that it is, like, customary to play a small world, both, you know, forwards and backwards during a reading of these scripts. However, I wanted to be a little bit creative with my choice. Oh yeah, Ray, that part is haunting. It is so haunting, because it feels like it's going to become our narrator's fate as well. Believe it or not, what I did to It's a Small World After All was not only did I play it forwards at the beginning, and it's normal going forwards, when I played it backwards at the end, not only is it played backwards, but it's also cut, with some parts repeated and sped up. So it repeats multiple times as if it's like skipping over a part in the track and starting from where it's remembering and trying to play through normally. It's like it's desperately trying to stay on track, but it's already off the rails, and even the song knows that something is horribly, horribly wrong. Yeah, like the track is alive. I purposefully cut it and sped some parts up and slowed down other parts, making it so incredibly jarring. It's one of the reasons why this is perhaps one of the, like, my favorite readings of any creepypasta that I've done, despite all of its flaws. I adored making something sound intentionally off-putting and wrong, because it is off-putting and wrong. And the thing about it is that Abandoned by Disney has 1.6k views on it. You want to guess how many views Room Zero has on my channel? Less than 1,000. Less than 900. Less than 900 views. It's true. It's in a bottle, it's fine. Everyone after stream, we got a flock. Flock? You don't have to flock if you don't want to. It was just something that I was pointing out because, hey, it is a fact. We gotta view it on Moss like everyone in the bunker. Camilla says, I can't, and there's only 16 of us. It's okay. You don't have to flock if you don't want to. Another word ruined by current events? Flock? Lost in Wonderland says, I'd be fine. To paraphrase Ben Brainard, I'll beast the shit out of a mouse, I don't give a fuck. In the wise words of Mark Fishbach, punch him straight in the gabba. Swear on me mum. Swear on me mum, everyone. Camilla says, Lost is a cute kitty. Lost says, oh, it should have been all bites Mouse's ankles. I don't give a fuck. Ray says, oh god, it's almost midnight by me. Get you to bed, Ray. I should be getting to a nap soon for myself. Thank you so very much for stopping by. Please make sure that you drink so much water. Make sure that you eat delicious food. And please, stay safe out there. Surviving is winning. I'm so very proud of you. Thank you so very much for stopping by today. I'll be seeing you definitely next week. But otherwise, you're gonna be seeing me around a lot more. Bye-bye.